You're listening to an Anazao Ministries podcast.
What would be your top priority in a global apocalypse? Well, if you've been thinking about that question, you have found the right place. Welcome, systematic geekologist, to another episode of HBO Specials. We're going to go deep. We're going to get in the dirt. We're going to ask some deeper questions around a pretty hot series on HBO right now called The Last of Us. And so, yeah, this is a part of our HBO special of going in deeper with those series we love on HBO. And this is a new one. It's not complete. It's 4 episodes in. It's going to be 9 episodes total. But it's so hot right now. People are talking about it so much. We've talked about it on What's New and other avenues of our podcast. But we thought that today would be a good day to talk about what we've seen so far with this pretty awesome show around our HBO special. So as we get started, we introduce ourselves and welcome. You may recognize my voice. I am Will Rose from Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and I'm joined with some OG systematic geekologists, and you know them as Joshua and TJ. How you doing, friends?
What's up? Doing pretty good. Even though we ended up sacrificing my favorite HBO series from our series of HBO shows because someone from our audience, our listeners, wanted us to do this, and we made it happen.
Yeah, we listen to the people most of the time. Most of the time.
We always listen. We just
when
don't
we like their ideas, we listen.
Consider it.
Yeah.
TJ, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm all right. I had a nice light shift at work.
Mm-hmm.
7 hours.
7 hours? That's
good.
That's not even work for you, is it?
Nope.
Yeah. You could do that in your sleep.
I could.
It probably does.
I don't sleep that long, though.
You could do that in a global apocalypse. You know, if there's an outbreak, a virus, some mold, some fungus, zombies, robots, AI, I don't know, whatever apocalypse throws at us, you could probably just work through your shift, not even blink an eye, just do it. Feed people as they're running for their lives.
Yeah, TJ, how does Chipotle feel about fungus?
Bad.
Okay.
Fungus bad.
Okay, that's good to know. Mm-hmm. We are going to talk about The Last of Us today, and so before we get into the episode of those 4 episodes and what we think so far about this apocalyptic genre of a show, I have a question. Since it's an HBO series, special series, I just wanted to ask our host, like, what is your history with HBO, home box office? What was your first experience? Was it allowed in your household? Did you have a subscription? Did you have to wait till HBO Max? Did you have to wait till you got out of the house? What is your history? TJ, I'll let you go first. What is your history with HBO? Has it always been a part of your life or just recently?
Yeah. So we didn't even have cable except for like 2 years that we did. And we definitely did not have HBO during those 2 years. Mm-hmm. So pretty much my entire exposure to HBO up until about last year was HBO is a channel that exists.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And then
you had to break, and then you have it now, HBO Max. What brought you on board to that in the streaming wars that you finally bit and started subscribing to HBO Max?
Well, as is with many things, someone else paid for the subscription. My roommate has it.
Okay. There you go.
It's on the big TV, so you just go in there and
boom.
Time to watch The Last of Us.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
Yeah. Joshua.
See if I can. So growing up for a long time, it wasn't just that it wasn't allowed. It was that in my head, up until probably Game of Thrones started, I just thought that HBO was soft porn. I had no idea what HBO was. Game of Thrones came around, and I knew that was on there, and I was like, okay, so it's soft porn that also has story. Cool. Because that's basically, my faith community at the time. That's kind of what they thought of it. It was just a lot of, body parts floating around. I was like, okay, well, I don't want to watch that. And then one day, like 3-4 years ago, Lord of the Rings was on HBO. So one of my best friends got it to watch Lord of the Rings without having to put the DVDs in, because obviously we have the DVDs, but sometimes you're too lazy to put the DVDs in.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
So it was like a free month or something, and I was like, sweet. So I watched Lord of the Rings, then I was like, oh, what next? And I know he was obsessed with my favorite HBO series now, Newsroom.
Mm-hmm.
So I watched through all that in like a week and was like, God, that is just fantastic. So I watched it as much as I could until his free trial ended. And then like a year ago, Tiffany got it to watch True Blood, I think it was, which is one of the series we're going to do. Kino likes it a lot too, turns out. I don't mind it. It's okay. And then ever since she got it, I found so many other shows that I love on it. I just watch everything.
Yeah,
nice.
If you're a DC fan,
yeah,
you have to get HBO.
Yeah, that was a good get. That was a good get from HBO. Yeah, I am definitely I'm the oldest host on Systematic Ecology. And so being 50 years old, I remember a day when there wasn't HBO and when there's just a few channels on the TV, and then we got cable. And then there was this one channel called HBO, the home box office, that you had to pay extra for, because that is where you could go and watch shows and movies that actually, had nudity or had cussing, or was the movie that was at the theater a few months ago, but then it drops on HBO. You can now watch it in the comfort of your own home, the home box office, not the box office, not go all the way to the theater, but you could actually watch a movie that you saw in the theater in your home. It was radical. It was crazy. So that I remember when my parents got HBO, and they were like, you can't watch this after a certain time of day, because later at night they would have like HBO After Dark. They would have the rated R movies, the more risque or horror movies there, violent movies there at night. But during the day, they would try to put on some more kid-friendly movies and stuff. When I was home for the summer on my own, we'd watch HBO all the time because it would have these different movies on a loop. And I remember the time when they put, when finally Star Wars: A New Hope dropped on HBO, and we were like, finally we could watch. We don't have to wait for it to come on VHS or rent it or wait for it to hit the theaters again. We could watch it over and over again, and we watched it so much. We had HBO growing up. I think I had it on cable most of the time, but then when they started going to these streaming services and stuff, I didn't have HBO. And so there's definitely a gap within like the series like Game of Thrones that I totally missed, because we didn't have HBO at the time. We weren't paying extra for that service or movie channel. And so definitely when HBO Max came on, the streaming wars, and DC moved over there, we finally bit the bullet and got HBO Max. And we've been binging lots of shows like Game of Thrones and other things to try to like catch up with the rest of the world when it comes to HBO. And so here we are with The Last of Us, and I heard this was coming down the pike. It wasn't necessarily on my radar, but then all of a sudden they're like, oh, it's the same guy from The Mandalorian who's also taking care of a child to try to get it to safety or on adventures each week. I was like, okay, I'll try it out. And then TJ revealed to me that it used to be a video game. And I was like, what? Okay, this was a video game from 10 years ago. And as I'm watching the show, I'm like, wow, this was a video game. Okay. But I love it. And I think it's fantastic.
HBO's reputation has changed so much over the years.
Yeah.
It's so weird to hear people who talk about like, this is where you used to get your movies. Cause I'm like, that's just not what I've ever thought of HBO as.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like even now I'm like, it's just a coincidence that there happens to be movies over there.
I can still hear the song like before a movie started. It go da na 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 na, and it's just swirling HBO. You can find it probably on YouTube somewhere, but that still goes in my head. Now you have like this kind of like a brief intro to HBO series with the fuzz, and then the HBO comes into focus, and that's definitely the new intro, but a little bit quicker. But yeah, we had to watch a swirling HBO come towards us like a comet. But yeah, it definitely has changed over. And I do think it makes a difference, because it's like one thing, I think TV has changed so much, and we're not going to go down that rabbit hole just now, but in terms of like, you had normal shows on network, then you had cable, then you had things like TNT and AMC, and then you had HBO, Showtime, Cinemax, that would pour money into, or could do a little bit more like risque things or rated R or soft porn stuff, where they didn't have to worry about like those who were going to edit them or tell them they couldn't be on the air. So yeah, and then like now, that's where a lot of your big budget shows are. They have the money, they have the clout, and I think that leading into The Last of Us. Like it's a apocalyptic post dystopia series, but it has HBO money, it has HBO actors, HBO money, HBO like let things loose. You don't have to confine yourselves to a lot of barriers. Just go for it. Tell the story you want to tell.
Yeah. Yeah. They actually destroyed Boston for the set.
They did. Yeah, absolutely. They did.
HBO has that kind of money.
Okay. Wow. So you mentioned that TJ is the one who enlightened you that it was a video game. Yeah. I've never played the game either. So I do have a couple questions to the one who's played the game. Because what's really interesting to me, part of, we mentioned HBO's reputation, and part of that for me really rings loud and clear in some stuff. Like Game of Thrones to me is too much. The story for me gets lost in all the gore and all the nudity and stuff in that series. This series, it's like all story. This is like, to me, I would think of the zombie show. If there was ever one that was going to be all gore all the time, it would be the zombie show. Mm-hmm. And that's not really the case. TJ, is that in the video game? Like, obviously there's going to be more fighting in the video game, but is it like a really story-based game, or is it?
Oh, yeah. Most people, if you ask them about The Last of Us, they're going to tell you it's one of the best story-driven games they've ever played.
Okay. That makes sense. Because I know some games are basically all story.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if that was like where this fell in like the spectrum of story to game ratio.
Yeah, and I guess with the first 4 episodes that we've met characters that are in the game that have given a little bit more screen time, but are these some characters that were TJ that were expected to come along that were in the game at the beginning of the story?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Y'all didn't know this is just me and Will interviewing TJ about the game.
That's right.
They introduced Fedra and the Fireflies a little quickly, but that might just be because I like to play the start of The Last of Us pretty slowly.
Mm-hmm. Right. Gotcha. Yeah, and so again, folks, like, yeah, this is a post-apocalyptic dystopia future. Think zombies, think AI or whatever, except they replace it with the monsters or the virus. The outbreak deals with fungus and in a different way to kind of take control of humans. And for me, it has all the tropes for that kind of genre. I was a big fan of Walking Dead until I wasn't, but for a long time, I was a big fan of Walking Dead. And so I love the zombie genre. I love the post-apocalyptic genre because I love the origin story to see how it outbreaks and how things start to change. I do like to see how they settle into a new normal. And then I like to see what the mission is going to be. What are they trying to accomplish? What are they going to do? Is it just for survival, or is there a mission they have to do? And this show has definitely has that same pattern. You have the outbreak. You have like, oh my gosh, this is actually happening. And then they fast forward 20 years later, and then you get to see kind of really quickly what the new normal is like in this world. And then you quickly move to like, all right, we have these characters who have a mission, who are teaming up, and they have somewhere they need to go, where to be, and they meet people along the way. And I'm wondering for you guys, in terms of watching this show, does this show hit a little different kind of in a post-pandemic COVID world? Did this hit any different or strike a nerve for you guys?
Nope.
Yeah, I wouldn't say so.
Yeah, I'm just kind of like, yeah, it's the same as usual. The only thing that was different about this one to me is every other zombie thing that I've seen, I was like, yeah, I feel like it's more likely it would be this. And literally, I've been seeing for years that I thought it's more likely that it would be cordyceps. It would be a fungal breakout, not a virus or bacteria or whatever else. So to me, I was like, hey, this is what I keep telling people. If a zombie apocalypse happened, it would be this. So that hit different. Mm-hmm. But I think the COVID stuff didn't really I didn't even consider it. Other than how people reacted, but not necessarily the fear factor or the breakout itself stuff.
Right.
It feels more poignant, I think.
Yeah, expand.
It's pretty easy to watch something that is trying to reflect real life and say, well, that's just not how that would happen. But I know for a fact, a lot of people would just ignore this if it happened in real life now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think that for me, that's why it hit a little different because, yeah, we can speculate about pandemics and viral outbreaks and zombies and think through that. I mean, we've said it over and over again that this kind of post-apocalyptic genre, at its root, it's not apocalypse doesn't mean war or the end of all things or actually the monster. The word apocalypse literally means to reveal. So what is this revealing to us? And usually tragedy, devastation, big virus outbreaks or zombies or war. And I would even say, COVID, a global pandemic, was very apocalyptic in a sense that it revealed to us a lot about how we navigate the world, what's important to us, and what we do when we're scared or nervous. And so as I kind of project onto this show and watch it a little differently than I did with Walking Dead, in the back of my mind, it is playing how we reacted to COVID, how we reacted to a global outbreak. If a virus could really happen and change the way we live life, change the way the government responds to things. It forces me to think about and reflect on what do I hold most dear and what I value the most that I'm going to hold on to, whether it's community or my kids or, or my money or my the way I want to go to concerts or not. I mean, that kind of thing, not to be flippant with that, but like we really did see with our own kind of viral outbreak, what people really held important and what they wanted to keep doing or not doing. And so watching this show, I can't help but think about that. My wife was watching with me. We were big Walking Dead fans in the day. And so as we're watching The Last of Us, I mean, she's kind of like, I don't find it as intriguing because I feel like I've seen this before. Yeah, the acting's a little better, has a bit more money, but she's like, I feel like I've seen this before in Walking Dead. For me, it's a little different, but just because I like the idea that if you're infected by a fungus, that's a little bit more with global warming, with how things evolve, that thing seems more realistic than like the Walking Dead walking around and biting you and catching a virus. It seems like, oh man, something could hop species and get into our brain or whatever. But for you guys watching this, is it a little different than say a Walking Dead? Does it have a different tone? What is it about this show that makes it a little bit more special, or you think people are attracted to rather than just another zombie flick or zombie movie?
I haven't really seen The Walking Dead.
I didn't see much of it. I couldn't get into The Walking Dead for the life of me. It was too slow. Which is interesting because I think I've heard people say this was slow too. I haven't experienced that, but that's because I didn't go in with really any expectation. So I'm not expecting a lot of violence. And the story is moving pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. If you're expecting it to be all violence, then yeah, it's probably pretty slow. But if you're just there for the story's going pretty quick in this one. I don't think the story went very quickly in Walking Dead. At least the first season, the parts that I saw, it was kind of slow. Right. And I think it asked a different question than most apocalyptic stuff. And that's what really intrigues me because I like philosophy more than theology most of the time. And I feel like most apocalyptic literature or movies or whatever does a lot of who would survive. That's what it's revealing. What kind of person would survive? Right. This one is asking more, what would you desire? It's a different question. And thus, it's just more interesting to me.
Yeah, that's a good point. TJ, what do you think? Is it asking a different question than kind of the other zombie flicks or robot apocalypse or whatever? Do you think this is going a different route or different angle?
Yeah, I think a lot of what The Last of Us is asking is more related to the quality of your character. Like, are you willing to set aside the meager life you've managed to carve out so that others could have a better one?
Yeah. Well, that and what I find really interesting, and I think other apocalyptic stuff does this as well, but not as well. Weird sentence. If you deconstruct all of the things that you have to do necessarily, in our current world, the way society's set up, I have to go to work. I have to pay for gas. I have to go here, do this. I have to go to church. There's a lot of have tos. Some of them are from societal pressure. Some of them are for survival, whatever. Mm-hmm. In this world, we see a world where if you want to survive. But there really is no have tos. Like all of those pressures seem to be taken away. And it's more of, if you're going to be in the city, you got to do what they say or they're going to kill you. I mean, that's definitely a thing still. But if you're not in the city, it seems like they don't really care what you're doing. Live, die, marry a guy, not marry a guy. They don't care.
Yeah, but I do think the overdrop too is also like this kind of government control, how they respond to it. So do they just they don't even care if you're infected or not. Like they're driving through the streets and they see like a bunch of people burned up, and so they're like they weren't even infected. Why do they get rid of them? Well, it's easier to get rid of them to ask or explore whether they're infected or not. We're going to do what's best to kind of like survive. So I think the government overreach when it comes to those things is definitely they're playing around with that. Now I don't know too much about the game in terms of the factions of the Fireflies and then those in the city who are trying to survive to come together and they're trying to keep the infected out, or those who are in every kind of apocalyptic genre movie or show. You have the folks who are just trying to survive and grow plants and eat a good meal and take care of their loved ones, even if they don't have electricity. But then you have those who want to like rape and pillage. And you definitely have that kind of threat too. The people who want to come in and just take what you have because they're trying to survive. So it goes back to this kind of like, I don't want to say like, yeah, dark ages of like you're with your tribe, you don't have electricity, you're just trying to have your fire and food for the season and then protect your village at all costs. The outsiders coming in, it definitely reduces you back to that kind of primal instincts of survival.
Yeah. And then the ending of episode 4 is where we're at right now. And I'm like, man, that raises a lot of questions for me. Someone who has I have no introduction to the game or the story at all. So I'm just
Me too. I'm along for the ride.
There's so much that I'm like, what is happening here? What's funny, just as a quick side note, TJ and Christian mentioned on one of the What's News, like, oh, it'd be really funny if somebody knew that this person existed, but didn't know that the original person you saw wasn't them, because then they'd be really shocked by that death. I was so clueless by all the things they said. I'm just watching the beginning of the show going, one of these people are going to die, and I'm supposed to think that it's somebody that they're not. And I don't understand what's happening. And then when the girl died, I was like, what? Why? Why did it have to be that one? Why couldn't they have meant that I was going to think that the weird uncle that I didn't care about was going to die?
Yeah.
Yeah. It got me.
Yeah. Almost. That's almost exactly what we wanted to experience.
Yeah. Well, it got me.
Yeah, and I'm along for the ride too. It's 4 episodes in. There's 9 total in the season. I'm sure it's going to be very successful, and I wonder if they're going to drag it out into a second season. Usually, when things are successful, they'll keep it going until they can, run it dry. They're going to keep going to that money pit and see what we can do. But I'm curious to see where they go with it, and I love the adventure along the way of this. And we saw in the 4th episode, this kind of hard. Joel is very hard and crisp, and he's not going to be attached to this kid because he lost his own, and he does not want to have any attachments and fear that is the danger of loving again is this kind of theme there. But by the end of episode 4, you see them starting to laugh together. They're sharing puns. They're sharing jokes. They're starting to crack up. They're starting to get to know one another, not just as like this asshole who's trying to get to where they need to be, or this like bratty little kid who's just going to get me killed. I thought that growing together, and then that's where the risk is in the character, why you care for these people and what's going to hold me on to keep watching, hoping that tragedy doesn't strike again. But you never know. You never know with these shows. Yeah.
That kid's one of my favorite characters in anything I'm currently watching. I enjoy her a lot.
She's
TJ,
fantastic.
I wanted to throw part of that we don't know what's going to happen to you. Not to give us a spoiler, but...
Nope, please don't.
But I am curious, how much of the government overreach and human infighting is going to be part of the story going forward?
A lot.
All right.
There you have it, folks. Breaking news.
Yeah. The myconids are not the real monsters here.
Oh.
Interesting.
But I do want to say real quick, there are 2 games. There are 2 The Last of Us games.
Oh, I knew that.
So I'm almost certain we're locked for season 2 at this point.
Yeah. I haven't heard this much excitement around a show since like Mandalorian season 1. Like it's crazy. Like I'm at work and everybody's talking about the show. We started a new chat in our teams. If my boss is listening, no, we didn't. But people are so excited about this show, and I'm like, what? Why? I wasn't even sure if I was going to watch it. And then I'm like, TJ and Christian talking about it. Everybody at work, so I'm like, I'm going to jump on this. I want to know what it's about. And then I see the questions they're asking, how they're answering it, and I'm like, oh dang, I want to I want to see where this goes. This is actually really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're right. And here we are, come up pretty soon, March 1st. We're going to have Mandalorian season 3. So we're going to see two shows with some very popular themes and actor in it. And yeah, the girl who plays Ellie, Ellie, who's in The Last of Us, she was also a pretty cool character in Game of Thrones as well. She was a younger person who did some pretty awesome stuff. So I was like, I know her. We just got finished watching that series. I know her from somewhere. And yeah, that's where it's from. Yeah. Well, going back to your question, I think that's the question that apocalyptic genre asks and holds up the mirror for. But, and what do you think your desire would be if you were in the same situation? If you were there, I would not be a survivalist. I would not be the person that creates a bunker and has a wall full of guns and could be able to plant and set traps and booby traps in front of my house. I would probably not be that person. But in terms of caring for my family, I want to protect them and make sure the ones I love are protected. I would definitely lean hard into that. But what would be some of the things that you desire or you think would come to the service if you could predict it?
I'm just trying to help people.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that this show has changed my perspective on some of this, because the only other apocalyptic thing that I really got into is I Am Legend.
Yeah, that's great. Fantastic.
That's vampires. If anybody's wondering, those are vampires. They're not zombies.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying. But what's interesting about that one is if you're the last survivor, basically, is what it is. But in this, that's not necessarily the case. You can find other communities of people if you're willing to risk it, and if you're able to trust other people in this world.
Yeah, who do you trust?
And I don't know. Part of me wonders, do I want to find a community that I can connect to and be part of a community still? Or honestly, I know this is super morbid, but honestly, part of me is I so fear becoming a monster that part of me is man, we know that the virus can infect dead people. Do I try to get killed so that I can't get infected?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's kind of tempting, honestly.
I mean, that's an option when it comes to that, a nuclear weapons coming your way, outbreak, that kind of the option, the nihilistic, just get done with it and end it now is definitely an option in a post-apocalyptic, it's not worth living. That is an answer. And you got to think through that. It pushes, and there's people who answer it that way in the show.
Yeah. Well, and that's a lot different than some zombie literature and stuff, and then some vampire stuff. You can be infected after you're dead, so it's I've never even contemplated that, because why bother? I might still become whatever. I might have the infection and it might not activate till I die, so that's a risk I don't want to take. But in this, they said the dead can't be infected, so I'm
yeah
seems like a pretty solid option to me.
I love the zombie genre. I have a whole long history with that, but this a new take on zombie / viral fungus mushroom head folks that can click and turn and have a hive mind that all kind of reach out to one another through the mushroom force and chase after people. That I just said that, mushroom force that just came out. Did not plan that. They reached out and can do that. Is something a little different on the genre that I love, and maybe it was there for the game, but first time I've seen on screen, and man, I'm there for it. I think it's fantastic.
I do wonder, because I've always said it, but I'm not really a scientist like that. I wonder, TJ, do you know anything about this particular type of fungus? Did you happen to study it when you were doing biology at school or anything like that?
Cordyceps, I read it a few times. It's just people bring it up every once in a while, and it's oh, did you hear about that mushroom that takes over brains? So it's something I knew about for a long time before I even played the game. So,
I knew about it. I just didn't know if you had ever studied it in depth or knew anything more than we know. I know in the games there's something about spores in the air, so I keep looking for that in the show, but I don't know what it is about spores in the air.
So they changed the spores in the air thing to tendrils for the show.
Explain, please.
No.
Yep.
What were the spores in the air in the game, and what are tendrils?
The spores were just mushroom spores in the game.
But if they're in the air, do you get infected? I mean, what's
you breathe them in, and cordyceps grows in your lungs.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And in the show, how's it work?
They're the tendrils that you see
coming out of their mouth,
mouths and fingernails, and
okay,
which is actually the original concept they had for the game. but they decided the spores would work better mechanically.
Right. And that makes more sense for a TV show. It's like if you're going to get infected and you just walk around the air, you can't have everybody get infected by just breathing. You would have to like, how do you transfer this virus? And if you like kind of stay away from these tendrils from a bite or something like that, that makes more sense. In a TV show, you don't have everybody walking around just breathing air. And because I see them, there are a lot of dusty rooms and they're breathing. I'm like, oh my gosh, it just seems like they're going to get infected. But that's not the case. They have to be in contact to be kissed or bit, or the tendrils go into their skull or brain. I think is really, really well done. And I think, as you said, like that opening scene of these scientists talking about like global warming and what could happen if mutation happens and evolution. And I think that is more believable and more scary to me. It's like, hey, if this can happen in ants, if this can happen in insects, then man, it could happen to us. And so that, for me, that's an extra element of fear and reality that I'm bumping up against that has me intrigued.
Yeah, I loved that. I loved that speech between those two mycologists. It was just such a good way to set the tone for the show, and a good way to show people that like, hey, this would be really bad. Yeah.
And again, post-pandemic, post-ish, COVID is still reality. It's become an endemic, and we still have to figure out what we're doing and how we navigate the world. Has changed the world in many ways. Again, it sits with me a little differently as I watch the show and what could and couldn't happen a year from now, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road. It's definitely has my attention. And let's take some notes, folks. Let's learn from how we reacted before and how we can work together and the dangers of all that together. Let's take notes and come together on this.
Yeah, it was there right off the bat. I was like, real life, people would also absolutely ignore these two guys.
Yep, that's right. All right. Any other thing? There's fun new HBO show. There's going to be a classic they're going to be watching years and years and years down the road. Once they finish the series, 10 years from now, who knows? Someone's going to be like, oh, look what I found.
I will say, when season 2 comes out, don't everybody hate on it all at once.
Okay. There's a good teaser. There's a good thing. Oh, so the game. So the game part 2. People complained about a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Oh boy.
A lot.
Okay. Yeah. Don't tell us why, TJ, because I don't want to know what season 2 is about or what they could change. I'm gonna no. Do not tell us, regardless of what Josh was motioning to you out through the mushroom forest to tell you what to do. It's not going to happen.
Sorry. So corporeal weave is tingling.
Oh boy. Thanks guys for listening. Thanks for hopping on here. Let us know what you think of this show. Maybe we'll loop back around when it's all said and done, and we'll have another discussion about this, either on What's New or HBO or just a whole nother episode or a live stream on our new YouTube channel. Who knows? Who knows how this is going to go? But yeah, let us know what you think of the show. And so as we wrap up, we talked about in our movie series Drive-In, what's like your favorite like movie go to the theater snack and what you have to do in order to. So here we are, home box office. You're watching from home, your favorite show on HBO. Favorite snack go to. What is it? What do you guys have?
Oh, I'm not a snacker.
Okay,
but a nice cup of slightly under room temperature Dr. Pepper. That's my jam.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I gave my snack before too, so I'm just going to go with the drink also then.
Okay.
It does depend what I'm watching. If Disney ever releases a Pirates of the Caribbean series, it'll be rum. Disney, do it. Also, but this kind of show, probably a lager. Something a little dark, but not like too dark or too strong and sweet, that I can just kind of relax and watch a show too,
Nice. Yeah, and for me, it all depends when I'm watching it during the day. Like if I'm trying to catch up in the morning, I'm definitely not having a rum or a lager or a glass of wine. I'm probably having my third cup of coffee and bacon toast. But if it's in the evening and chilling at the end of the day, maybe a beer, maybe a glass of wine, maybe what we've discovered is grapefruit spindrift, which is it's a fizzy water with grapefruit. I'm not a big grapefruit fan, but it for some reason, this particular low calorie drink tastes kind of hoppy to me. So it's like I'm having a calorie free, alcohol free, hoppy drink in the evening. And then snack wise, it just depends on where I am and how much dinner I've eaten or not. So that's it.
Yeah.
Cool.
If I'm going to snack, I want something quiet though.
Quiet snack.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll fry up some mushrooms and have some fried mushrooms when I watch the finale of The Last of Us, or put some mushrooms on top of my salad. You know, I'm a surfer, so there's no way in the world you're ever going to get me to eat like shark, because I don't want a shark to eat me. So I will never eat shark meat or shark in terms of seafood. But with this show, I don't, maybe I'll eat some mushroom just to see what happens.
Yeah. It's also, I've heard shark is really bitter.
Yeah, I would never know. I'm not going to eat.
It's on my bucket list. I have a list of things that I want to eat before they can eat me. The problem with shark is it's usually just gotten so amorally that I'm just not okay eating it unless I know
it's not
for
okay
sure how
to eat
it was harvested.
It's not okay.
They're endangered.
So if any of our listeners are sharks, just know that we're not going to eat you. We love you. Please do not eat me.
Unless you die of natural causes, in which case I'm taking it off my bucket list.
Fair game. If I die of natural causes, in the ocean and you find me, feel free. Snack on me, shark. Fair. But other than that, don't. Let's know that. Let's ride a wave together. That being said, folks, thank you for listening. We hope you tune in again for our next HBO series, or What's New, or Deep Cut, or live stream. Go to our website, click on the hosts, find out more who we are, click on the episodes, find out what you're into. I'm sure, there might have been an episode from like a year and a half ago you had no idea that we did. You're just listening to us now, and this might be your first episode. You're like, what? You talked about Ultraman? Yeah. You talked about Godzilla? Yeah. You talked about One Piece? We sure did. We talked about Bad Batch? Yeah. We talked about Kingdom Hearts? Yep. You are right. So go back, find those episodes, and then keep listening. And then, So as we always do, we want to close off by saying, remember, we are all a chosen people, a geekdom of priests.
This was an Anazao Ministries podcast. If you enjoyed this show and would like to learn more about our network, be sure to check out the Anazao Ministries Podcast Network.